Morning, market chameleons, and my man Dimitri Pargamonic. How you doing, Dima?
Good morning, Will. How are you?
Great. Excellent webinar last night, D. They get better and better every time.
Yeah, that was a good one. A lot of good questions.
Yeah, I will put that link into the chat as soon as we get this disclaimer over with. There you go, Dima.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. Before we get started, keep in mind, Will and I, Market Chameleon, we're not registered investment advisors. We're not broker dealers. We're not telling you what to do. We're just sharing ideas. If you need professional help, contact your broker. That's what they're there for, to help provide you with guidance and answer your questions. So there's the disclaimer.
Excellent.
Get started.
What are you seeing this morning, buddy?
So let me share my screen real quick. I think what we'll do is we'll take a look at the pre-market report, move on to the earnings today. If you have any questions, I'm going to try to get to, as many of those questions as you see popping up on the chat. And if we have time, maybe we'll take a look at some like bullish flow ideas. Sound good?
Great. Yeah, that's great.
All right. So right now we're looking at the pre-market report. These are stocks trading in the pre-market hours. We got the most active list, biggest percentage gainers, biggest percentage decliners. Let's take a look what's going on in the higher market cap stocks. So I'm going to use this filter, go to 20 billion market cap or higher. So we got a couple up there. RKT up 15% on 3.2 million shares.
I think that's Rocket Mortgage.
What is that?
I think that's Rocket Mortgage. I don't know. That was actually Felix Frey. Last time we had him on, that was one of his stocks that had shown some unusual call activity that he was talking about.
Right. So that's interesting. So that was up 11% yesterday, up 15% in the pre-market hours today. So closed at 24.30, up trading $28 in the pre-market. That would be up 15.2% from yesterday's close. If we open here, 3.3 million shares trading, float of 115 million. Let me see if I see any headline news today. I don't see any headline news, but I think I did see it popping in there. And I'll take another look popping yesterday on some bullish call option activity. So I'll take a look at that today because I think I did see that RKT popping in there. Gap up history. Let's just see what it tended to do after a gap up in the morning. So these are looking at 12 largest gap moves to the upside in the last 3 years. Okay, so these are the dates. Looks like they reported earnings February 25th, right? Yeah. So March 1st, January 29th, January 27th, these are the dates. These are the gap moves. So if we took an average of the 12 largest, we got 7.7%. So today, way above that average at 15.2%. So if we open here, that's way above the 7.7 average. And I see a high move, let me see, 15.4% over here. So this is the high gap, low gap in this data set between 4% and 15.4. So on the higher end of the historical range. What did this stock do historically after gapping up in the morning? So let's take a look at that. So from the open to the high of the day, the average move was 4.5%. From the open to the low of the day, average move was down 5.7%. So from that perspective, skewed more towards the downside than upside. Magnitude of down moves exceeded magnitude of the up moves. From the open to the close of the day, we see that it tended to drift lower more often than higher, 58% of the time closed lower, 42% higher from that opening price for an average loss of 1.8%. So we could see here what is the volatility intraday. So gapped up in the morning, how much did it move up or down on average from the opening to the close? So that's if we converted all these moves to positive moves and took the average. So we see here up or down 4.7%. So still is getting a lot of volatility intraday, right? You still got on average 4.7% move. So that's really quickly a historical return distribution of RKT after a gap opening move to the upside. I'm not seeing any headline news right now, except that it looks like they reported earnings a couple of days ago. So maybe that's just building on top of that. But I'll let you go in there and search for the catalyst news behind that move. Zoom, I think they reported earnings, right, yesterday. Let's take a look how they're doing. So Zoom reported earnings, closed 409.66, trading 440.50 in the pre-market hours, up 7.5%. So let's take a look at their earnings history. And I see they only had 8 quarters, so we don't have a long history of Zoom. But let's just take a look at the short history we do have and see how that stock reacted. So it looks to me like in the morning, opening gap. So 57% of the time it opened lower, 43% of the time it opened higher for an average gain of 4.5%. So what this looks like is that the gaps to the upside, right? The magnitude of the gaps to the upside exceeded the gap moves to the downside. So upside surprises way more volatile than the downside. Average move, if we took just all these numbers and converted it to positive to get an average magnitude of the move in either direction. So that's this one over here, the absolute average move. That's 11.2%. So an average, it moved up or down 11.2% with a high move of 35.2. So today's move, 7.5% is in that range, right, of the average, below the average, after the opening. So this is what it tended to do on earnings after the opening. From the open to the high of the day, average move 6.4%. From the open to the low of the day, average move was down 4.4%. From that perspective, skewed magnitude of the move, bias more towards the upside than to the downside. Drift from the open to the close, 57% of time drifted higher from the open to the close, 43% of time lower for an average gain of 1.1%. Again, that's price return distribution in Zoom after reporting earnings. Okay, short history here. I'm just looking at the last available, I think, 8 quarters we have. There are no questions on this one so far. I see Square up 3.5%. Maybe we'll take a look at that stock today as well. I'll come back to that one after we go through some of the other reports.
All right, great.
Let's take a look at the unfiltered report. Couple stocks here, low cap stocks. You can see here 45 million market cap, 49 million market cap. They're jumping out. And NVC up 103%. That looks like a biotech stock, something to do with COVID, the COVID vaccines, I guess. So that's up 103%. I'm not going to go into interpreting that news. I'll leave that up to you. But that looks like, reacting to news here. JCS up 36%. That looks like it's a merger. Just hovering over the headline news there, up 36.4% on 435,000 shares. That's a low cap stock. Again, some of these low cap stocks, here's another one, GEG, looks like they're making an acquisition. So they're up 35.4% on trading 1.5 million shares in the pre-market hours. That's a 91.3 million market cap stock. I'll let you guys go in there and look at it, but we see these low cap, so we see this almost every day, some of these low cap stocks reacting to some news. If there are no questions, Will, I'll go take a look at the earnings and cover some of the other reports if we have time. Okay. Earnings front, let's take a look what's coming up in the earnings. So I'm going here, earnings, upcoming earnings analysis. These are stocks expected to report in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to use this filter to look for stocks that trade at least 5,000 option contracts per day or more. And let's go to this full report over here. So here's a list of the companies. These are the symbols. This is the expected release dates. Okay. And then we're going to take a look at what the options are implying, the magnitude of the move to be up or down in either direction. So the options, you're buying a call, buying a put at the money, you're paying premium. The stock has to move either up or down enough to cover the cost of that premium. So that's what we're looking at, the implied move according to the option prices. So here's an example, BOX, the implied move in either direction is 12.1%. So how does that compare to historical actual moves in the stock? So if we take a look at the last 4 quarters and see how the stock reacted, you know, the magnitude up or down, we're just looking at the magnitude of the move. The average move was 4.1% in the last 4 quarters. In the last 12 quarters, the average move was 7.9%. So we see here today's implied move 8% above the 4-quarter actual realized move, 4.2% above the 12-quarter average move of 7.9%. The high move in the last 12 quarters in that stock, 23.3% after reporting earnings. JWN, that's expected to report today after the market close. The straddle, as of yesterday's close, we're not open yet. So as of yesterday's close, the straddle was implying a move of 9.9%. That compares to a 4-quarter average move of 7.4%, a 12-quarter average move of 9.2%. So we see the straddle right now is implying 2.5% above the 4-quarter average, 0.8% above the 12-quarter average move, and the high move on that stock, 15.9% in the last 12 quarters. HPE, that's expected today after the market close. Straddle, right as of yesterday's close, is implying a move of 5.4%. That compares to a 4-quarter average move of 5.2% and a 12-quarter average move of 5.1%. So we're a little bit above there, kind of in line with those historical average moves. The high move in that stock in the last 12 quarters after reporting earnings, 11.5%. FUBO, looks like they've been trading a lot of volume there. And I don't think they have a long hit. This is relatively new. That's what it looks like to me. Well, do you know anything? I'm going to go to
I
this.
don't know anything. I know it's been an option on my with my Hulu and everything on my smart TVs for a while. So if it's new, they must have gone either IPO'd or gone through a SPAC pretty recently. Yeah.
So here, I mean, I'm only picking up, 2 quarters of earnings here. So really not enough, to look at the stats. But as of just looking at where the options are lining up right now, the straddle is implying a move of 15.8% in either direction. We'll see how that one goes because there's not a long enough history to look at an FUBO. Do you have any questions on earnings, Will?
No, not on earnings, Steve. No.
All right. Do you have any other questions?
Well, we had a question, actually, Mike, who was on the webinar last night, and he was asking a question. He's asking from yesterday's show, what option structure designs do you like for the top and bottom of the expected range identified in price distribution analyzer tool? So I guess he's looking for, I don't know, spreads, straddles, strangles, what type of things?
Yeah, I mean that
It's unlimited, right?
yeah, it's an unlimited, strategy, that you could do. You could do, you know, butterfly, right? Condors, spreads, it, it it also depend a little bit on your other biases, right? Like if you have a directional bias, if you have a volatility bias. So yeah, there's an unlimited amount. There's no way to answer that. There's no one answer to that question.
Great. All right. Well, there you go. That was the one question.
Many other factors that will play into it to really be able to answer that question like that. Let me take a look. I'm going to move off. If you have no earnings questions or no other questions, I'm going to take a look at, let's take a look at the option block trade screener. So this screener is looking at these. Right now I'm on the option block trade screener, and it's a list of trades coming in from the options market. It's looking at trades that are at least 50 contracts or more on a single trade, right? So it's looking for blocks, not one lots or two lots, but it has to be at least 50 or more, and you could use that to change the filters. And a lot of times, and a lot of people use this to just kind of get trade ideas or see what's going on in the market to point them to research more trade ideas. And there are different ways to do it. People do it a lot of different ways. That's why you have all these types of filters to look for interesting ideas, and then you build up a thesis towards, well, what do you think is going on, and do I agree with this assessment of information or not? And I think Felix is one of the people who uses this screener. I know he finds ideas using the option block trade screener. A lot of other people do it because I talk to people, who like this screener. And of course, you set up all your different filters. You could save them and then follow it that way. So I'll just give you an example. So we have some presets to get started, and these are just things that we built as examples, of ways you could use it. And of course, you could build on top of that, change the filters. But this is one way to, if you don't have any filters and you want to get started, you could use one of the presets. So let's just take a look at the bullish flow. And I got a bunch of filters here. As you could see, they all highlighted red. Okay. And I also have some filters on this screen. Those are highlighted red as well. So I'm going to go through a couple of them and kind of explain what the thesis is, what is the logic behind the filters that we have set, what it's looking for, as your starting points. And you could see here, these are the stocks that were popping up yesterday as detecting bullish behavior, trades that are happening in a bullish manner. MARA, RKT, DKNG, Uber was on there, CAN, VLDR, GOV. So throughout the day, you could see that a lot of them, we have 47 pages of trades that we looked at, and a lot of them will be in repeating in the same symbols sometimes. So you could scroll back and kind of take a look. Apple was on there, RIOT. I thought, what was that other symbol that we saw? I think, because I thought I saw that RKT, right?
RKT with Rocket Mortgage.
I thought I saw that in there too. Oh, there it is, RKT. So let's take a look at what these filters right now are trying to do.
And we did have a quick question. Might as well get to it. Michael McRae is asking, how often does the option volume data update?
So our option our market data is 15-minute delay, and I believe this one is on a timer, maybe like every minute or so. So it depends on which report you're using. More intense report will be on a 5-minute timer or 10-minute timer, depending on what you're using. Now, keep in mind, like none of this is meant to be this is for research. The idea is that you're able to kind of take a look what the thesis is behind the trades, and do you agree or disagree. These are not like fast speed, high speed trading. None of that is for this, because if that's what you're into, if you're competing in the high speed, fast speed trading, you got to go to NYC, go get that super feed, because then you're competing with like the Citadel, Susquehannas, So if that's what you're into, this is more of like, huh?
No, it's you start peeling back that onion, which we had gone through this process, you and I, 15 years ago.
Yeah. If
it's
you
such
can't think about the trade, if you can't take time to think about the trade, then you're in you're in this space where you already have an algorithm to be able to analyze those numbers and really quickly react to it. And then you're competing on a high speed trade, which this is not, and I don't think anybody would be able to anyway compete on a high speed trade, and your eye is not going to detect anything either. So the idea here is like to kind of think about, and you'll see as I'm showing you the filters, kind of the idea. And a lot of the people that I'm seeing using these are going back days, analyzing this from days ago, not even like on the same day. They're going back days, to see what was going on, what are they building up, what is the idea behind the trade. So I think some people get it like, I have to see it real time to get an edge, and that's not the case. Even your brain would not even be able to comprehend or compute what do you think is behind, the thesis behind it. Because there's about, if I unfilter it, you're going to see like a million trades here, right? So let's just get to the filter section of it first. Hopefully I answered his question. I don't know if you see it.
Yeah, no, you answered it, and then talked about some important thoughts to think about when you're doing your research.
Yeah, you got to think about, and think about the most successful traders, right? Think about the most successful like traders or investors, hedge fund guys, the Warren Buffett's, all these. None of them are sitting saying, I'm looking at a real time trade and following. They're doing it's a basis for you to do research on. Just point things out. So in this screener here, there are two main things we're looking for. Is one is what traded, that could be unusual, and really we're waiting for confirmation. So it's not just the trade itself, but is it moving in a way that we're expecting it to move after the trade. So the idea behind it is, if you're getting some confirmation and it continues, to go in the direction that you're expecting it, and sometimes there's more trades on follow-up, that's kind of like your insurance policy. Who's Jesse Livermore? That was his style, right? He's like, even when you think you're right, wait for the confirmation. That's kind of like your insurance of, well, is it moving in the way that you're expecting it to behave? Because if not, then you might be wrong in your analysis. So that's embedded within this filter. So let's just take a look at some of these filters here. One thing we're looking for is the delta of the option between, these are call options, between 0 and 50. So the idea here is we're looking for options that are either at the money or out of the money. The idea behind that is if the transactions are happening in at the money or out of the money, those traders are paying premium. And if you're paying the premium, you need movement to cover that premium, right? So you can't just like sit there. They're showing confidence that, hey, I think that I'm willing to pay that premium. The stock will move enough to cover that, that premium that I'm paying. So we're looking for options 0 to 50 delta. We're also looking for trade conditions here are either auto execution, intermarket sweep, or regular order. In other words, we're taking out anything that's tied to a stock, like a contingent to stock or spread, because those are a little bit noisy. You know, those are already indicating to you there's another part of leg to that trade that could be a volatility play or something else. So we're just looking at single-legged trades. Here, I just said it's that the stock price has to be above 10, and a couple other filters here. These are kind of self-explanatory. Here, I'm looking for a technical indicator where the stock is trading outside its expected range for the day, which is basically it's more than one standard deviation. It's making more than one standard deviation move. In other words, if the stock activity is kind of confirming also the option activity, right? Because for it to move, first you have to break the expected range. So that's why we're looking at something that's above its resistance. It's moving more than one standard deviation, so it's moving outside its expected range on the day. The next thing we look at here is the following. Well, how's the trade panning out? You know, because if you're buying a call, right, is there confirmation? Is that call rising in price afterwards? Is the stock going up? Is the implied volatility going up? In other words, like which side is winning on that trade, right? Because if you think there's a call purchase, but the stock is going down, then the implied volatility is going down, and the option is going down, well, you know, maybe that's not the right time, or something else is happening. You know, and it could be out further into the future. But this is kind of looking at the activity is pushing it in the same direction as you're, you know, in a bullish manner. So those are up here, all the filters. I'm just kind of explaining to you quickly because I don't have enough time, but you could see here. These are the filters. Implied volatility increased since the trade. So this is what it's doing. Here's the option. So we see this is where the option was on the original trade. This is where the option went to later that day. So it's just tracking the option since the trade. This is the implied volatility. So the implied volatility increased, the option price increased, and the stock price increased as well. That's why we're following and saying, well, that's interesting because it's getting pushed all in that direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
People? So that's how these filters are set up to detect that type of situation. So I'll come back here, and of course you could continue adding your own filters to this or changing these filters, but that's just one way of looking at it as a starting point. And some people will look also at the quantity. Is it higher than the open interest? If you do this, the idea behind that is that there's potentially new positions being created because the quantity of the trade exceeds the open interest from the start of the day. So again, you could keep adding filters to it and then seeing what pops up as, you know, potential opportunities. Just wanted to kind of come back, you know, to this because a couple of the stocks that I've been seeing popping in here, kind of, I've seen also popping in that pre-market report. So I think we're right at 9:30, Will.
Yeah, great job, D. Listen, I put a link in the chat. Pavel was asking about, well, he asked us to do webinars with traders who use this feature. And we did one with Felix Frey like a month ago. So I just put that in the link in the chat. Great job.
Yeah, I've asked some members who talk to me, but no, you know, people are shy. They don't want to kind of come out there and talk about it on a live YouTube. You know, I haven't asked that before for members because some people are very successful with it. They know kind of, they're already used to using it and knowing how, but they don't want to come on the show.
Well, if you're, active on the chat and you're a good person, email me, William McBride at Gmail. There's a Discord that's run by chameleons, and they look out over the entire market. Some of them use our product, others use other products, but they talk about their ideas on there, and a lot of them get the ideas from here as well. So lots of good resources out there. Thanks, D.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Have a good trading day. Hope to see you guys tomorrow.
Trade in peace, everyone. Bye.